Hey guys, it's Lion here with HobbiesofaMan. Once again, and today we're going to be doing a comic book review for this Mexican comic book. It's called Kaliman, or The Origin of Kaliman, Tome 1 or Book 1, Volume 1, The Legacy of Kali. So, I am going to talk about the history of this character since it might be the first time that you've ever heard of them. So if you're interested in that, please continue watching as is. However, if you want to skip through the book facts and you want to skip through the history of this character, if you already know him, and you just want to go straight into the premise and the plot, feel free to jump to the next chapter in the video. Just go through the scrub bar, find the notch where it tells you that it starts the premise, and feel free to click towards that section, because this might be the longest part of the video, honestly, and if you're not interested, feel free to skip it. So, let's do the book facts first, and then I'll talk about who Kaliman is and why this character is important, right? So, Kaliman, Book 1, this is a relaunch of the character. This is the first modern version of this character, or the first modern comic book of this character that we've seen. I don't know in how long, honestly, but it's a Mexican character. It's one that is very important to Mexico. So, who worked on this? It doesn't say anywhere on the cover. However, if you open the interior here, it tells you right there, and it says here, the character was created by Modesto Vázquez González and Rafael Navarro, who were the original creators of the character back in the 1920s or something, 1930s, I think. The story here is done by Exahib. He is the main writer, although there is some help from Edgar David Aguilera and Jose Vázquez Morejon. And it's inspired by Kaliman, the Incredible Man, which is the original series, the name of the original title. And the artist here is Roberto Castro. Now, you might know him if you're into American comic books because he has done some work for Marvel and DC. I don't know how much, I don't know how well known he is, but he might be the biggest name in comics in the US from Mexico. He might not be, I'm not really sure. But he does both the inking and the initial artwork for this piece. And the cover, and actually every cover for every single issue when this came out in issues, was done by Rodolfo Perez, who is also known as Pegaso or Pegasus. And he is a very well-known, very kind of like Frazetta-esque artist, known for his erotic paintings more than anything, but also his involvement with comic book and fandom in general. And if you're a fan of Edgar Rice Burroughs, you might know him from some of the Edgar Rice Burroughs weekly strips that he does. He actually works on John Carter of Mars, I think. So that's cool, although his style in that is very different from this one. So yeah, and the colors here are done by Ulises Grostieta. And this illustration here is done by another comic book artist called Jose Luis Gutierrez Garcia, and he does a great job with this. This is the family that currently owns the rights to Kaliman, and this is the beginning of the book here. So Kaliman is Mexico's most enduring and greatest comic book character, which is crazy because nothing about this character is Mexican. The creators, or one of the creators, I think, was originally from Cuba. He moved to Mexico during some upheaval that was in Cuba, and with the advent of radio in Mexico, he joined forces with this other guy. I can't remember which one's which. Either Modesto is the guy from Cuba, or Rafael Herrera is the one from Cuba. I'm not really sure, but these guys join forces. They create this story, and they launch this radio serial story, radio drama, I guess you could call it, in Mexico, and it becomes insanely popular. For many years, people gather on the radio to listen to this story, and then, eventually, the character jumps onto the pages. He becomes Kaliman, El Hombre Increíble, the Incredible Man, for comic books. And so, the golden age, or maybe the only age of Mexican comics, exists for a long time thanks to Kaliman. Kaliman becomes so important and so powerful of a figure that he gets exported to other countries. He becomes huge in Colombia, and actually from Colombia he's exported to the vast majority of South America. So for a long time, people thought Kaliman was a South American creation from Colombia, but he's actually from Mexico, although maybe you could argue he's from Cuba because his creator is from Cuba. It really depends on how you want to look at it, but the epicenter of the Kaliman craze, if you want to call it that, is Mexico. It's probably Mexico City, although it might have been Guadalajara. I'm not really sure where it was, but that's basically the basics of Kaliman. And Kaliman is a adventure type character. He's also kind of like the Shadow or the Spider, that kind of thing. He fights against agents of evil, and they usually have some almost like mystical or metaphysical quality to them. Kaliman is not a superhero. He doesn't have supernatural powers necessarily, but he's not necessarily a baseline human. He's one of these like characters that are kind of like in limbo, like something about them can be considered superhuman, but not exactly, because they don't have superpowers, they don't use drugs to acquire these powers, they don't fall into a vat of poison or anything like that. But Kaliman, as a character, is someone that has basically psionic abilities. I would say that's the best way to kind of mention all of these abilities, right? So in this first page in the comic book, or one of the first pages in the comic book, it tells you all of his attributes, all of his stylings, right? All of the things that are his, right? So let me see if I can read some of these and see what happens here. So it says here, Kaliman is the hero any man could ever be, with absolute control of their mind, their body, and their spirit. So he is kind of like one of these, like basically like Batman, where Batman is the pinnacle of human condition and human strength and vitality through sheer willpower, right? So yeah, so basically he also has this kind of like ability here. He has an extraordinary mind. He is well versed in metaphysics, in the metaphysical realm, basically. He also managed to gain immortality in some way. I'm not really sure how. It doesn't say here. And he has, weapons training in every weapon that you can think of. He is a martial artist expert. And he has wisdom and knowledge given to him by the monks of Tibet. He has the title of the Red Dragon. And he has encyclopedic knowledge of the 21st century. He has insane agility, strength, resistance, almost or better than an Olympic athlete. He has the ability to do astral projection in some way. He's a polyglot. He dominates this art called the actus mortis, which is a way of slowing his heartbeat so much that he appears dead. And he has liberated his third eye. He has the ability to do three-dimensional projections, levitation, and telekinesis. So these aren't superpowers, because the premise of the idea is that it is what happens when you obtain enlightenment. So basically he's like Buddha, but with like a slightly supernatural lean to it, right? It's not really all that different from psionics, if you want to call it that. So that is the basic history of Kaliman and his powers. And in this book, we actually kind of restart the timeline. This is kind of a reboot, I guess you could call it, by telling you the original story, the origin of Kaliman. Where the heck does he come from? So the premise here is that it's the origin of Kaliman. It is the story of his father and his mother and his greatest master, Mr. Rudra, or just Rudra, I guess, and the battle with the dark version of the goddess that he is sworn to, right? And so that is the basic premise here. And so the plot line from there basically is two stories, right? One of them is in the past, dealing with the parents of Kaliman, and one of them is essentially in the present to some extent, which is dealing with Kaliman finally dealing with his prophesized duty, I guess you could call it. So I'm going to talk about the two stories individually, and then they'll converge into one story at some point, right? So the first story is the origin of Kaliman, as in where does he come from? So we get introduced to this adventurer, this guy called Raymond Quartermain, and I think this is a reference, and actually might be directly based on Alan Quatermain, this great character of the pulps back in the day, I think. And I think that the original series actually said that Kaliman's father was directly Alan Quatermain, but because of rights issues, I think that's why they changed it to Raymond. I'm not sure, though. If I'm wrong, please let me know that in the comments, although I really don't think that many Americans might know any information about this character. But if you do, please share it with me down below. So, we get introduced to this guy. He turns out to be this great adventurer, very Indiana Jones-esque. And I mean, Alan Quatermain is basically the inspiration for Indiana Jones, so that's kind of where that comes from. And he's kind of traveling the world. He eventually reaches India, and he realizes that there is a hidden temple somewhere. He knows that he wants to find this temple. He is very interested in this history of this temple and of the goddess that this temple is for, which is Kali. Now, I don't know if this is actually true to reality or not, but Kali, according to this book, is a Hindu goddess, and she has two attributes. She has the light version of herself, which is Kali the White, or Kali the Light, and Kali the Black, or the Black Kali. And they are two versions of herself, the personification of her light side and her dark side, and they are in basically this endless kind of quarrel, and things are kind of unbalanced currently. The light side of Kali is basically succeeding at maintaining the dark one at bay, but with Raymond Quatermain's discoveries and his publishing of his papers to kind of show where this potential hidden temple is, it leads the followers of Black Kali down into this area of India where they manage to find themselves inside the temple at the same time as Raymond. And so Raymond now has to battle these cultists. And through this, he actually meets the light-sided cultists, or the people that follow this religion, this fervor towards the light side of Kali. And through that, he meets Rudra, who is Kaliman's teacher, his uncle, actually, as well. And Sundari, who is Rudra's sister and also the future mother of Kaliman. And so Raymond Quatermain and Sundari basically establish a rapport. They grow close together, and Raymond and Sundari and Rudra and all of the light-sided Kali people, Kali followers, basically are locked in a quick battle that takes over a few months, I think, to kind of see who's going to win. Something happens, and the Dark Kali cultist managed to awaken Mahakalam, who is the basically the general for the dark side of Kali, right? He is the closest thing to her that is available. He is this great big demon man right there, and I think this is what Dark Kali is supposed to look like. Or maybe that's just Kali in general, I'm not really sure, but they managed to awaken him, and so the tide of this battle for the world and for basically the balance of the universe turns, right? And so Raymond Quatermain dies. Sundari is left holding his seed and pregnant, and basically they're on the run. Eventually, Sundari gives birth, and they continue to be on the run, and Kaliman grows. He's actually initially named Siddhi after Siddhartha Gautama or something. I can't remember his name. The guy that eventually became Buddha, that is the Buddha that we all know today, right? And he's named after this guy, or this religious figure, honestly, this very important person. I don't want to be disrespectful. And some years pass. Eventually, the dark cultists find Sundari and Rudra and young Kaliman, and they attack them. And basically, Sundari gives her life for Kaliman, if I remember correctly, in such a way that she actually implores with Kali, and she begs Kali to save her son. She's like, "My goddess, I give you everything that I am, everything that I have, and that I ever will be. Please, protect my son from evil." And so Kaliman gains this kind of protection, very Harry Potter-esque. And Sundari, I think, dies from this procedure, but we get to see that Kali smiles on onto her and provides the protection needed to Kaliman. And so that's basically the end of the first story, and that's where the second story starts, which is the growth of Kaliman, who he is from, this 5-year-old child to this 18-year-old man of 13 years spent in the Tibetan kind of highlands, learning with monks and being taught about the spirit and about control and martial arts. And we get to see that he is a genius at everything. He is an amazing person, character. He has everything necessary to be a good man and a great hero. And so he eventually leaves. He has moved on from the temple. Nothing there is good enough for him anymore because he has outgrown them, basically. Not in a negative way. That sounded bad, but basically Kaliman has to go explore the world in order to become the man that he needs to be in order to eventually fight off against the dark Kali cultist, right? Or the black Kali cultist. And so he goes off on adventures. We don't really get to see many of them. However, we get to see him go to this place called Kalimantan, which is kind of like some sort of Indonesian or Thai kind of country, little tiny country somewhere. And he goes there. He sees the situation. Basically, this country or this nation is being like tortured by just evil in general, and this is causing a lot of problems. And so Kaliman goes up to the king. He's like, "What do you need? What's going on?" And so Kaliman finds a way to solve their problems. And it turns out that the people that were causing these problems are actually the people that were supposed to be next in line to the throne of this place, right? And so the king, the current king of this place, decides that Kaliman is the only one that can rule his country now after all of that he's done to save them. And so Kaliman becomes the king of Kalimantan, which is pretty convenient. And he immediately dissolves the monarchy with the blessing of the king. And he essentially becomes the leader through voting, although we don't actually get to see this. But we do know that Kaliman is basically the king of this place. We also get a little kind of hint at some of the stuff that's coming later, which is that we get to see this moment where there's this child that's being taken, and it looks like he's being taken against his will. And I think this is supposed to be Solin, which is Kaliman's partner. He's basically his child partner, like the kid that goes with him, so that we can have like basically someone to join in the adventure. He's basically Kaliman's Robin, right? And so I think that that's what that is. However, I'm not really sure. And so the story basically reaches its conclusion at this point. We catch up to the current timeline, and it turns out that Kaliman and Rudra, who is now an old man, now that Kaliman is like in his 40s basically, and Rudra is an old guy, it is time to go towards the final battle. And so Kaliman goes and he fights Mahakalam, and he wins, and it's a really good fight. I thought it looked good. And then he manages to banish Black Kali, right? So it was a good battle. It was a good story. I really liked it. I think it's 4 issues wasn't enough, but at the same time, I think that there needs to be some refinement with how the story is told from Exakib and his abilities to be a writer. Overall, it was good. I liked it. I thought it was interesting. It might have taken a little bit longer to really tell you what was going on, and maybe I missed some of the details. I can't remember exactly. It's been a while since I read this, actually. But I think I did my best with what I remember. And based on my notes, I think I basically took all the right points, right? So it's a very interesting origin story. I don't think that this is ever going to come to the US in English, like properly, like through a legal mean, but I'm sure that there are already English translations of this available somewhere online if you want them. And obviously you could always buy this volume and then just translate it with your phone, right? So if you're interested in that, if you're interested in the story, I recommend you check it out. In terms of characters, we have Kaliman, who is the main character. He is this man dressed in white. He's basically like a light side Batman, I think is the best way to say that. Even though Batman is also part of the light, I guess, he is on the right side of justice, ish. Batman is definitely a dark character, and Kaliman is an insanely light-sided character. He is very good. I really like him. I think that there's a lot of inspirational stuff that you can take from Kaliman. Although this story doesn't really explore Kaliman as a character too much, it only explores his origin story. So this is basically a Kaliman year one, if you want to call it that. And so Kaliman isn't really that main of the main character. It's actually just kind of like the idea of him that is important here. Of course, there's Raymond and Sundari, and I think Raymond for the first 2 issues is actually the main character. Whether you might want to, call it that or not, I think he is. And Sundari is a very minimal side character, except for the 3rd issue where I guess she's kind of the main character, and she has the most important role here, which is the Padme moment, or the Lily Potter sacrifice moment, right? The moment where love triumphs overall and imprints this the shield of love around this young child, right? And so, good stuff there. And of course, there's Kali of the light and Kali of the dark, the 2 versions of Kali. I'm not really sure how this works. I guess this is kind of like how, like in Hinduism, as far as I understand it, there's one god that has many different representations, and some of those representations are negative and some of them are good, and that's just kind of how it goes, right? I think that's how it works. I think this is a very pared down version of that, probably because when this was made, no one really knew what the hell was going on in India at that time, especially not anyone from Mexico. I very much doubt that they had contact with India, or enough knowledge of each other to have like a very strong cultural exchange at this time when this was originally made. However, at this point, I think that this is either as accurate as it possibly can be thanks to the internet, or still being kept vague and kind of like how it was back in the day in order to maintain the integrity of the canon of the character, right? I'm not really sure, but I think it's interesting. I like this concept a lot. And we also get introduced to 2 other evil characters. So one of them is Kamala, and she is the first bad guy character that we meet at the beginning of the story. However, she's not really relevant. I think she's important in other Kaliman stories, and so that's why she's here, but she's not actually important to this story. The main bad guy, the one that we really get to see, is Mahakalam, who is that demon character that I mentioned, and I think he's a good character. I enjoy him a lot. Although I had him confused with the guy that kills Raymond. I thought they were the same guy because they look very similar, but I think they're not. I think they're 2 different people. One of them is a cultist, and the other one is actually like a demon character. Although they might be the same person. I'm honestly not too sure. I think I need to read this again to really understand all of the nuances of this story, right? So yeah, in terms of world building, this is very India-centric is the best way to call it. Or maybe, like, what's the word here? Southeast India-centric. Although I think Southeast India actually is lower than, Southeast Asia-centric. I didn't mean to say that incorrectly. Although I think that actually mostly includes like Vietnam and countries like that. So this might be a Eastern Asia story. There's parts that happen in Tibet. There's parts that happen in India. There's parts that happen lower down into the kind of like Polynesian kind of areas of the world. So it's very East-centric. Depending on how you want to look at this, you might think it's racist. I don't think so. I think it actually manages to be very respectful. But Mexicans have a different kind of threshold for that. So if you're reading this from an American perspective, you might think that it's kind of insane. But I don't know. I think it works well. There's gods, or at least a god, Kali. She has a light side, a dark side. She's kind of Indian inspired. She might actually be a Hindu goddess. I'm not really sure. I didn't really double check. Although I probably should have. There's psionic and metaphysical stuff and spiritual stuff that is really interesting and cool. And in terms of artwork and fan service, I think the covers are phenomenal. They're very sexy, very erotic feeling, I guess. Like especially these two, very pulpy. I really like this style. I think it's very phenomenal. Look, here's cover number 1, and let me see if I can find cover number 2 really quickly. I should have marked these, but I decided not to. Here's cover number 2 with I think that's the dark version of Kali right there. Yeah, let's see. There's no glare there. And Sundari and Raymond are there as well. Here's the third one. This one includes a child who I think is supposed to be Kaliman, although it could be Solin. I'm not really sure. I think this is supposed to be Kaliman over the body of his mother when she dies, growing up into a man. That's Mahakalam right there, and that's Raymond's head. And let's see if I can find the last one here. I think this is the last cover for the series. Very nice. I really love that one. I think it's good. And there's a little bit of a cover gallery back here as well with some pretty basic stuff here. So this is actually a postcard that was given to people that pre-ordered it. I did, so I do have it. I just don't have it with me. Here's another image. Here's some sketches for the artwork of the inside, if you're interested in how that looks. The coloring is good. However, I think that the style changes throughout the book. And I think I know why, but I'm not really sure because there's only 2 people credited with the work here. And both of them feel different chapter to chapter. And I think it's because these weren't done in one go, one after the other. These were done over a period of time, I think. And so I think that the artist and the colorist kind of had different stylings that they were getting used to at the time. And so the style of their art changed as well. And although I initially disliked it, I thought it was interesting because it might actually work in their favor in the sense that, here's what the initial issues look like. This is probably my favorite ones. It works in their favor because depending on how people reacted to the artwork, it might be the style that they pick for future series, right? So I think it looks interesting. There's also some issues with coloring here where Mahakalam, this demon character, looks different colors across the issues. And it's not important, I guess, but I would like some consistency. So I don't know. It really depends on how you want to look at it. But I found it to be fine. I didn't have any issues with the artwork. I actually enjoyed it. And I love the pulpiness of the Rodolfo Perez covers a lot. I think they're nice. And as you can see, this cover is also a poster that's right up there that I also got right there because I pre-ordered the book. So yeah, overall, artwork is good. Fan service, there's a little bit here and there. There's a few titillating scenes, especially in the first 2 issues. And of course, all the covers are really nice looking. So yeah, good stuff there overall. I liked it. In terms of a rating, I think this is a 4 out of 5. I think it's good stuff. It's a good start to the relaunch of this character. However, like I said before, I think it feels a little short. And also, I feel like some of the things that happened in the issues could have been shown instead of told. There was a lot of text bubbles that were narration and not enough action. Or not enough physical, like, happenings in the story. A lot of it was just narration, and I find that to be, like, not good. Now, there might be some reasons why this was. First of all, Mexico doesn't have a great comic book market. They have a good manga market, and specifically manga when it comes to one publisher, Panini specifically. Kamite and Manga Line and all the other ones kind of don't do that well. But Mexico doesn't have the best comic book market, so they might have wanted to minimize the risk as much as possible while still introducing this character into the world again. And so they decided to go with a 4-issue miniseries and put it into a trade paperback as soon as possible and send it off and see how it went. That was a good experiment for them. However, it leads to a less than perfect product. It's good, like I said. I actually really enjoyed it. But it definitely is noticeable that there's issues and constraints put on these characters a lot. Now, these constraints might actually not have been put on by the license owners, but rather by the creators themselves. I'm not really sure, but it is noticeable that they exist. So those are my thoughts on Kaliman. Let me know what you thought down below. Is this a character you guys were aware of as Americans or as Westerners? And if you're not from the West, if you're from Asia, maybe, what do you think about this character? What do you think this is like? Like, what is your perspective from, like, if you're from India or the Middle East about this character that looks so not Western, coming from, you know, a very well-established Western country? So, yeah, let me know. I mean, I guess Mexico's not the most well-off Western country. It's probably not, but it is at least the third best. if you're talking about North America, you know, there's the U.S. and then Canada, and then Mexico, and then maybe Colombia. I guess, I don't know. It depends on how you want to look at the economy and the socio-political climate of each country, right? But yeah, what do you guys think? Isn't it crazy that the greatest comic book character in Mexico is not really a Mexican character? I find that to be really compelling and interesting, right? So let me know down below. Thank you guys very much for watching, and see you guys later.